If I did not treat people as I do, he would say in his own defence, I would never have a minute to myself for work. But I am really timid by nature. I have to force myself continually. Edgar Degas, to a friend when reproached for his unrelenting attitude towards people. It may seem surprising to Degas' admirers that he thought it necessary to be stern in order to overcome his timidity. But one gets an inkling of the true character of the man in a letter to a friend, to whom he reveals the state of his soul. I am going to ask you to forgive me for something which keeps coming up in our conversation, and still oftener, I am sure, in your own thoughts, and that is that throughout the course of our professional relationship, I have been, or seem to have been, hard with you. I have been singularly hard on myself. I have had to be. You must realize that this is so, since you have at times reproached me for it, and were astonished because I had so little confidence in myself. I have been, or seemed, hard with everyone, because I was carried away by a sort of brutality born of my distrust in myself and my ill humour. I have felt so badly equipped, so soft, in spite of the fact that my attitude towards art seemed to me so just. I was disgusted with everyone, especially myself. I ask your pardon, then, if, with this damned art as an excuse. Degas was born in Paris, into a moderately wealthy banking family. He was the oldest of 5 children of Célestine Mousson de Gas, a Creole from New Orleans, Louisiana, and Augustin de Gas. His maternal grandfather, Germain Mousson, was born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, of French descent, and had settled in New Orleans in about 1810. Degas was from an early age enamoured with pictures and began drawing. He converted a room to himself in the family home as a studio of sorts. Degas began to paint seriously, and by 18 ventured to make copies in the Louvre, but his father expected him to go to law school. So Degas registered at the Faculty of Law at the University of Paris in November of 1853, but had little interest in his studies there. It was in 1855 Degas met the revered artist Jean-Auguste Dominique Ingres, whom he advised to draw lines, young man, many lines. In that same year, Degas received admission to the École des Beaux-Arts, where he studied memory drawing with Louis Lamothe, under whose guidance he flourished. By July of 1856, Degas was in Italy, where he would remain and copied for the next 3 years. This was a time for Degas to explore, and he covered a wide range of topics and subject matter, from his early attempts at history painting to portrait paintings, primarily studies of family, and his interest in horses, such as in the jockey pictures. He became increasingly preoccupied with pictorial design in all manner of options and angles, which he would later use more daringly, employing pronounced diagonal shapes with countered rhythms of the figure or figures, as in the Ballet series. Degas' life was as ordered and arranged as a sheet of music. He was in his studio from morning till night. When his work went well, he usually hummed some old tune. Zoe, his long-time maid, would look to make ready his tea and arrange lunch, and as often would make sure of his guests, whether he consented to see them or not, given his mood. Light-heartedly, Degas often teased and joked with his models. "You are a rare specimen," he would say gravely. "You have buttocks shaped like a ripe pear, like the Gioconda." And the girl would go about showing off her buttocks with the greatest possible pride. But though Degas allowed himself occasional liberties in familiar talk around his studio, he never treated his models with the least indelicacy. Degas explored the possibilities of design at the milliner's shop, watching ladies in their selection choices for hats, noting interesting angles and points of view, whether behind the counter or at the mirror. His originality becomes ever more bold and sure. His choice of pastel as his go-to medium becomes increasingly important. He is quoted as having a difficult time with oils, and often found pastel much more to his liking and drying times, not an issue. In addition, Degas found his special fixative, discovered by a friend, and kept secret between the two. It allowed for the pastel to stay put, and permitted a great deal of freedom normally associated with the medium over successive layers. As we turn to Degas' pictures of the ballet, his genius is truly unlocked. It was the one opportunity for Degas to observe the dancers in every conceivable gesture as they warm up, stretch, sit, rest, or are coached by the instructor. The brilliant use of his various depictions is altogether dynamic, convincing and spontaneous. The complexities of lighting at all angles are yet another factor Degas has no problem in solving. The ballet pictures sparked great admiration in his day to the present time. Degas was the most helpful and valuable friend imaginable when it came to advice and criticism of painting. When the painter Gervex was at work on his lesson in anatomy picture, Degas said to him, "Did you ever see a student taking notes while the professor is lecturing? He ought to be rolling a cigarette." And it was this bit of advice that made the picture. In another example from Vollard, I displayed The Little Girl on the Blue Sofa by Mary Cassatt, whose talent Degas admired so much, in a prominent place in my gallery shop. At the first exhibition the Impressionists gave, Degas had asked Mademoiselle Cassatt to give him the canvas she was exhibiting there, in exchange for the finest of his nudes. He had a particular affection for The Little Girl on the Blue Sofa, for it had been painted under his guidance, and he had been generous with suggestions about the composition. Vollard relates another story. When Renoir came back from painting a portrait in Munich, I asked him what had struck him most in his patron's collection. "There was a nude by Degas I shall never forget," he said. "It was the only thing you wanted to look at in the entire room. It was like a frieze of the Parthenon. But what about yourself, Monsieur Degas? Why haven't you ever married?" "I marry? Oh, I could never bring myself to do it. I would have been in mortal misery all my life for fear my wife might say, 'That's a pretty little thing,' after I had finished a picture." Degas attended an auction at which one of his pictures had fetched a sensational price. As he was leaving, someone said to him, "Quite a change from the days when you sold a masterpiece for 100 francs, Monsieur Degas." "Why do you say masterpiece?" asked Degas sharply. "If you only knew how sorry I am those days are over." I may have been a good horse to bet on, but it is just as well I didn't know it. If my goods have begun to fetch such prices now, there is no telling what Delacroix and Ingres sell for. I won't be able to buy them for myself any more. So Edgar Degas' legacy endures as a study in contradiction. A humble yet determined painter, generous yet aloof, deeply intellectual yet endlessly open to newness. In creating art, he was always exploring its boundaries. His work was driven by curiosity, the curiosity of a craftsman in a workshop, always testing another idea, another angle, another version. Many of these attempts were never finished in the conventional sense, and yet even his unfinished works were conceived with such rigor and clarity that they stand as complete statements in their own right. That's the paradox at the heart of his genius, and why he remains something of an enigma in art history. Whether he was polishing a canvas for the salon, or simply chasing a fleeting gesture across a sheet of paper, his work has lasted, driven by a relentless optimism, a lifelong mission of constant discovery. And finally, be sure to check out our ebook selection on your favorite artists, and thank you.